Hey guys, it's Jan, Not a Real Farm. So we are smack dab right in the middle of planting right now, but I thought I'd slow it down and show you some of the progress that we've done. So we've got our little pea patch happening here. You can see that the peas have now started to really grow in the greenhouse. And the idea is that they're going to attach up the cattle panel, and then each row of peas will subsequently attach to each other, kind of giving us this sort of pea trellis in order to get 5 or 6 rows of peas there. And we've got lunchbox peppers that are doing really well. So you can see I've succession planted. So I've got ones that have started really, really early, and then ones that are a little bit smaller so that we have, that continuation of peppers all season long. And we have a zucchini plant going. We tried to give the zucchini a little bit of room. I'm going to make sure that I trim off a lot of the leaves though, which does not hurt the zucchini. We have grapes. Then we have what's called a pumpkin benet red pepper. And then here we are growing black cumin. So I did have a lot of you ask me what black cumin looks like when I'm trying to grow it. So it kind of resembles celery a little bit, or maybe even a cilantro. So we'll be harvesting the seed from that. And then let's keep on moving down the line. So we've got cucumbers. We've started tomatoes. And we have more peppers here. So these are poblano peppers. You can see already that they've actually started to bud, which is great. Grapevines in the back, so you can see they're already starting to grab onto the trellis. More tomatoes. Here we've got basically melons that we have to figure out where we're going to plant those. More little green onions. Kale, I'm really trying to be good at growing this year. Trying to get a little bit of a jump on really liking kale, but it's not my favorite. So we are going to try and incorporate it a little bit more into our diet. We have pretzel beans, so that'll be an interesting plant to see how that grows. All back here, we have what's called Aunt Lou's underground tomato. So there's a history with that. The history for these tomatoes is that the seed was actually carried by black slaves all the way through the Underground Railroad and then planted and passed down through the generations. So we have some of those seeds, so we'll be saving those. Supposed to be sort of a mid-sized, really nice tomato. So we'll see how that turns out. More sunflowers. And here we have a kidney bean. So we're going to try and grow just a couple because kidney beans tend to grow really tall. We've got cucumbers in the back. More peppers. Now I'm smack dab in the middle of actually planting my lettuce out. And we've got also collard greens, watermelon. And here, of course, I decided this year I was going to plant the peanuts here. So we'll leave them in here in this side of the greenhouse and see how they do with the heat. We've got another zucchini. Mostly all of my tomatoes, what I've done is I've put them in the back. So what they'll do is they'll actually climb the cattle panel. So that'll make it easy for us to actually harvest them. There's more peppers in my trays. We've got jack-o'-lanterns that we're going to plant for Halloween. And here they are actually right here. These are my jack-o'-lanterns. More tomatoes. And then we've decided to do a little bit of micro tomatoes. So what I've done is I'm trying to maximize the amount of space in the greenhouse. So my micro tomatoes are all sort of planted in a square foot sort of, you can see there where it's a square. Trying to do square foot gardening and put things a little bit closer together this year because the more we can grow, the more food that we'll get. So this is good. More cucumbers in the back. We've decided that what we're going to grow here is what's called a mottled mung bean. So a mottled mung bean basically is a blue and white sort of mung bean, but mung beans are very, very nutritious for you. And then of course, we've got some blackberries coming up, more tomatoes, and the list goes on and on. So now I'm going to flip it around and we'll take a look at what's actually growing in some of our middle bins. So here, this would be considered a weed by most, but this is actually anise or anise, some people say. So what this does is the seeds taste like black licorice. You can also take the leaves and you can make that into a tea. Now, I don't normally save the seeds from this only because it grows as a weed. When you actually brush by it, the whole place smells like black licorice, and I love that. We are going to save the seeds from it this year and offer it on our store if you're interested in growing something that tastes like black licorice and adding to tea. I've trimmed down the burdock that decided it was going to go crazy here, so we've trimmed that down. And one of the most interesting things that we've added to our greenhouse this year is permanent fruit trees. So what we've done is we've planted what's called an opal plum, one here and one in the middle of the bed over there. So what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to have 2 fruit trees in here that are protected from the deer that don't grow any more than 8 feet because it's on a dwarf rootstock, and we'll be able to harvest our plums from inside the greenhouse. So you can see already he's actually pretty happy in here. The leaves have already started to kick out. So we'll see how he does. What we've got growing actually next to the horseradish, if you can see anything past the horseradish because it's doing amazing, is our fig tree. So our fig tree had a little bit of shock in the beginning. It got pretty cold when I brought him out here and he went into a little bit of shock, but other than that, he's doing amazing. He's pushed out another shoot. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually trim this shoot off, put it in some rooting powder and start another fig tree, but we're gonna leave him alone for this year. And then we have some of our asparagus. It's flowered already inside. Our horseradish has flowered. Check it out. It's got flowers. Now the horseradish is pretty much almost as tall as me now. So it's gotten almost too big this year. So I can't wait to sort of dig out the root and start over. But you know what? I really like the white flowers that the horseradish gives off. That's really nice. Here is our roses. So let me back up a little bit so you can see how full they got. We almost made it to the top of the trellis, but not quite. We've got maybe 2 feet that we didn't cover, but boy, did they really blossom this year. And then here we've got our blackberries. So what's happening here right now is some of the blossoms have fallen off on some of these. So this fruit is now producing, and now we're still having buds come out as well. So what's happening with it is we'll have a staggered harvest of blackberries that are already producing, and then we'll have the fruit that's behind it. So we'll have a continuous harvest. So that's really good. I'm looking forward to that. Beside it in the bed, we've got more asparagus. So the heirloom asparagus has decided that it's going to start to give us flowers. And let's take a look at some of the other beds. So in these beds here, I like to call these my salad bar. So here we've got our green onions, we've got radishes, we have mint. I do enjoy mint in my salad. We have Swiss chard that's growing, and we also have cilantro, and here we have summer savory, which is doing really well. Above it, we've grown some corn. And in this bed, we start all over again. So we've got cosmos flowers, just for color. We've got green onions, and we also have an awesome herb that I've had now for the last 2 years, and this is called peppergrass. And peppergrass is just that. If you put this in your salad, it's almost like you are sprinkling your salad with black pepper. It has a little bit of a zing, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It takes me by surprise. It's got a little bit of heat to it. So we'll be saving the seeds from this and offering it in our store as well. And then here, we've got our rosemary, which is doing fantastic. We've got garlic chives. We have sunflowers, and we also have basil that is coming up, and oregano, and thyme. So you can take a lot of this in these little 3 beds here, and you can actually make a salad out of them, which is great. In this one, we decided to grow some flowers along with some basil and some edible daisies, because edible daisies make really great tea. Of course, we've got our kitty cat and our frog happening. I just have the fountain off so everybody can hear me. We have our coffee trees. And then you can see how good our beans are doing inside the greenhouse. These are green beans, so They weren't supposed to be pole beans. I'm starting to really second guess my planting. I'm hoping that this doesn't grow any taller or any longer. I may have to trim it. It's actually supposed to be a bush bean, and I'm thinking maybe one of my seeds got mixed, but that's okay. We'll deal with that. And here is more of our green onions. And in here, what I've done is I've just dumped some spinach, just some spinach seeds in here so we can have some sort of salad before everything gets too hot in here. And you can see actually our lettuce is doing amazing. So our red lettuce is doing great. Eventually what will happen is it'll be too hot in here for the lettuce, so we'll actually have to trim it out. But until then, we'll leave it in. And this is our other plum tree. So very happy where he is. And here we go, we have a little corn patch. So this is a super sweet corn that I've decided to grow. I did a little bit of a corn patch last year and it did really well in here, so I expanded it a little bit. I've planted them in blocks because what will happen is once this fan opens up, it will actually blow the corn around because corn is wind pollinated. And so that was my goal, was to actually have it so that it's sort of mimicking the wind in here, but at the same time growing it where I don't have to worry about the animals coming in and eating it. So let's see how the corn does this year now that I've planted a bigger block of it. We've got some red sun multipliers, so we'll see how they do out here. We've planted carrots. We've planted more corn out here, and we've also planted radicchio. So you can see here, it's actually taken pretty good. This is not the kind that you need to wait and then grow it in the dark so that it will blanch into a color. It actually does everything that it needs to do outside. So less for me is more. So we'll see how that turns out. And then over here you can see that we have our asparagus bed, or one of them anyway. And the asparagus is still basically coming up ready for picking. So this is good. I'm on week 3 of picking asparagus. And with all the rain that's happening right now, it's really tough to keep up with all the weeds, but we're doing the best we can. And then over in this bed is the hascaps. So the hascaps, as you can see, have actually begun to flower. And the bees are loving it, so I won't be here very long. Do you see the flowers on the hascaps? So we will be getting definitely another crop from the hascaps this year. As a matter of fact, I think you can hear the bee probably right now. He's probably not really happy I'm here while he's trying to pollinate, but... And then here we go again. Another bed of asparagus. So we have been, like I said, eating asparagus like crazy. And the weeds are just taking over, so we got to do a lot of weeds. In this bed here, I've done a 10-foot row, a 10-foot bed of Yukon Gold potatoes. And in this bed all the way up, we've got contender beans. We've got spinach. We've got peas. You can actually see some of the peas starting to come up now, and they'll attach themselves to the cattle panel. And then we've got our couple of patches of garlic here, which is loving the rain. And so are the weeds, as you can see. And then I decided this year what I was going to do is I was going to grow the red ripper cowpea. So we've got 4 of those plants here, and I'm going to let that grow up the cattle panel as well. So here's something I don't show very often, which is our little bee hut that we have here. Now, last year, the bee hut was empty, and I thought, okay, none of the bees have come back. However, if you look inside, every one of the cocoons inside is actually full. So it looks like we've got some pollinators that have taken up in here, and that's going to be their larvae that's in there with the cocoons. So we'll see what we get out of that. And we are adding 2 more beehives to Not a Real Farm, so we'll see what happens. So back at the back greenhouse, I have a lot of bear scat, so I have to be cautious when I'm back here by myself. You know, the greenhouse backs onto a big wooded area, and I'm usually in there too collecting berries, so I have to be very careful. But, oops, but the bears are out, so I gotta be careful. So in this greenhouse, I did a lot of weeding the last couple of days. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like I got anything done at all. But I wanted to take you back and show you. I was in this bed, actually, weeding, cleaning, finding out what I left behind, and look what I found. So here I was digging through the weeds thinking I didn't plant anything in this bed, and it looks like I've planted what's called a northern garlic. So it's called the Great Northern Garlic. And it looks like I forgot about it and they went to seed, and now they're back again this year coming up. So I will have full blown out garlic bulbs from this. And yeah, isn't it amazing what you forget what you plant sometimes? I do that a lot. So garlic in this bed. More asparagus. And then with all the rain, I was in here plucking out just some of the old leaves from the rhubarb. But the rhubarb, we've had nothing but rain for the last, I think, about 2-3 days. So the rhubarb is really starting to come up. So we've got 1, 2, 3 patches of rhubarb, which are doing really well. And of course, we've got asparagus in front of that. So I actually put my spare asparagus plants in the front of this because I didn't want to get rid of them. So we do have actually quite a bit of rhubarb as well, and asparagus that we're never going to be without. And you guys know, I haven't gotten to this yet, but this is another asparagus bed. But you can take a look. All the asparagus is coming up really nicely. Some of them are really tall. And as a matter of fact, we are having birthday barbecues this weekend. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut this asparagus and bring it to the barbecue and actually saute it maybe on the barbecue. We'll see. And then back here, remember, I'm still weeding back here. In the small little bed, we've got another patch of Great Northern Garlic. So you can see these stems are really strong. If you're really interested in growing a garlic that basically withstands a northern winter that you can toss in a garden bed and forget, Great Northern Garlic. It's actually up on our store. So if you are interested in growing it, I do believe I still actually have some in the store. Really great garlic, nice and spicy, great to cook with. And of course, last but not least, this is an outdoors red walking onion patch. Now it looks worse than it really is, guys, because some of these, even though they didn't make it to the ground, check it out. As soon as they hit the ground, look what happens. So this guy here has hit the ground and it's actually forming another walking onion. That's it for me today, guys. I only have one request, and that is, if you do have an opportunity, if you could wish Mr. Not a Real Farm a happy birthday. It's his birthday today, so we've been out sort of doing some stuff and gardening, and it's been pretty awesome today. So if you do have an opportunity, wish him a happy birthday. Thanks for joining me today on my greenhouse tour. See you soon.